And we're back. Another episode of Wakanda Whiskey and Blurred Them. Our Black Comic Lords Friday night, late night happy hour. I'm your host, Paul. With me is my man, Marc.
What's going on? What's going on? Happy Friday to everybody. For those who celebrated in Juneteenth, hope you all had a good time. Hopefully, you had the time off of work.
You still in Oklahoma, Texas, wherever?
I am in Oklahoma until Sunday. I'll be back at home next week.
Is that Tulsa, Oklahoma, or some other
It
part?
is Tulsa, Oklahoma, where Black Wall Street is.
Are you on the street of Black Wall Street?
Nope, it's about less than 5 miles away from where I am. And as I've been telling people over the past few years, I grew up literally less than 5 miles from where Black Wall Street was. Never learned about it in school. Never heard about it until as an adult in the past 7 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is. It was never taught in school when I was in school.
All right, what's up into the chat? Got people in the building. Our man, Dr. Wizard. What up? Pericles Dragon Balls on time. Look at him. Next, you know, frustrated fans gonna show up any second. This is awesome. Welcome everybody. Make sure to say some stuff in the chat. Shout us out in the chat. Let us know you're here, man. Keep us lonely. Amir, what's up, man? How you doing? Pericles says Tulsa, birthplace of the Gap Band. I did
Now,
not know that.
I'm pretty sure I've mentioned that here before, but the GAP Band is an acronym for Greenwood, Archer, and Pine. And those are the streets that border Black Wall Street.
Look at that.
Yep.
You learn a little
And in,
something on Black Comic Lords every now and then.
and in fact, we got a couple of famous people from here. Tim Blake Nelson. What would you guys know him from? Did you watch The Watchmen, the series?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, the dude who wore the mirrored mask, the cover.
The guy who also played was in the Incredible Hulk movie. He
Absolutely
played
right. You're
he
right.
played the guy with the head.
Yes, he played
The leader? Is that his
the
name?
leader. Yeah, him. He's from Tulsa. John
All right.
Hayden, comedian. He's from Houston.
Bo Biggs in the house. Richard's complaining that you have an echo. He's in Oklahoma.
No, that has nothing to do with it. It has to do with the fact that I told you earlier that I can hear me on your computer.
I don't know why that is. Um, why don't you try it without your headphones? See what that happens. If that makes a
My
difference.
microphone is not through the headphones; it's through my computer.
All right. Well, your computer sucks. It says you're echoing. It must be really bad if they're complaining about it.
Yeah, like I said, we can hear me on your computer.
Well, if you think it's me, I'm going to back out for a second. You talk to the fam, tell them what you're drinking, while I back out and come back in.
Sounds good.
All right.
First and foremost, thank you all you guys who are here with us once again on a Friday night. Tonight I will be drinking this Lost Irish. Now, as you guys know, we like to highlight black distilleries and distillers. Again, I'm in Oklahoma. The liquor store that I go to, they didn't have anything black owned, and we've been through a lot of the black owned distilleries like Uncle Nearest, like Greenwood Whiskey. Surprisingly enough, Greenwood Whiskey is not here out of Tulsa. See, we hear the echo again. It's your computer. So if you have some headphones yourself, that would be really good.
Oh, Lord. All right.
So with that being said, talking about Greenwood, the Greenwood black-owned liquor, it's not out of Tulsa. It's owned by about 5 guys, none of whom are from this area.
How's that? Is that better?
When I'm talking, nobody can hear me now because you have it not on your speaker. So yes.
Yes. All right. All right. I'm drinking some Glenlivet 14. It's the same stuff I had last time. Unlike Marc, I don't have a huge supply of liquor that I go through on a weekly basis. I have my bottle until I'm done. Salute. Now, what are we here for today, Mark?
Well, of course, we always start off with our whiskey portion. Now it's our Wakanda portion. And our Wakanda portion is not Black Panther in his own title, but is part of the cross-issue Marvel storyline of the Blood Hunt. For those who don't know, Blood Hunt is the summer story where the hero Blade has turned heel, and he has made it so the sun is blotted out all across the planet due to the dark force. There are several heroes and villains whose powers are dark force based. Somebody who you may think of is Cloak of Cloak and Dagger fame. He's one of them. There are several others out there. I'm not going to run through them right now. Blade figured out some type of spell so everybody's powers would go haywire. And it has blotted out the sun, and it is now Planet of the Vampires. Well, there are cross-issue storylines along with the main title. We are now going to be discussing Black Panther Blood Hunt #2. It's going to be a 3-issue limited series, and this book is spectacular. Cheryl Lynn Eaton was in her bag, as you youngsters like to say, when it came to this story. And even though T'Challa is almost a secondary character in it, what I appreciated about this book is that it goes into the history of Wakanda. We're talking about, almost from its inception. It goes back. And it talks a little bit about where vampires come from.
Hold on. Pause. This, Mark is getting like all into the story and like summarizing everything. And I want to do this in detail because I want to start with the fact this book was freaking fire. This, in my opinion, is a Black Panther classic issue. I would damn near say it's, for a Black Panther fan, it's a key. It's a low-grade key. And I cannot talk about Black Panther keys without having a very special guest. Mark's like here as a Black Panther fan. I'm probably like here as a Black Panther fan.
That's not true. That's not true.
Okay, Mark. You want to be higher than me?
No. We're equal Black Panther fans.
All right, fine. We'll be equal Black Panther fans. Sure. Now, there's a dude whose Black Panther fandom is up here. Do y'all know who he is? You should. Otis Artberry, the Black Lion.
Good evening, everybody.
Up, man?
How you doing? Good evening, gentlemen. Good evening, gentlemen. How are you?
What's going on, dude?
Otis, this is my friend Mark.
Nice.
Mark, this is my friend Otis.
What's up, Otis?
Otis lives up in
What's
upstate
happening?
New York.
Great to finally meet you.
You as well, man. You as well.
Otis is he makes us look like casuals when it comes to Black Panther fandom.
Stop it. Stop it.
Are you
Stop
sitting
it.
on your
Stop
throne
it.
right now?
Stop it.
Are you? Hold on.
Yeah.
What are you sitting on, Otis?
That's cool. Hey, step up for a second. Hop up.
It's my. Oh, okay, I'll show you.
Hop up. Hopefully you got pants on. That's
I got pants on, man. I got pants on. Yeah, it's a little project of mine. I posted pictures a little while ago.
You made this?
Yes.
So are you a wood carver? Or
Yes.
Is this
like I'm learning as I go, man. Just
you can
started out with a base and had an idea, and boom.
So Mark, there's a slight delay between us and Otis. So let him finish talking before you say anything.
Fair enough.
All right. So Otis, thank you for joining us.
Yes. Yeah, no problem.
I know.
Thanks for having me.
You and I have been chomping at the bit to talk about this book.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into it. There's a little bit of a delay. If there's any way you can improve your internet, pop off, come back on, let us know. But there's a slight delay between your signal and ours.
Okay. I can jump off and jump back on. You know,
Try
I'm
that.
not technical savvy, so I mean, all right, I'll do that. I'll do that.
Just pop off and come back on. All right. While he's doing that,
Hold on, before you
let's
go any, hold on. How much would you pay for that chair?
more than my wife would probably allow me to pay for it. But yes,
That
I'd
that's
pay a lot
easy.
of money.
That's about a $1,500 chair at least. I can
At,
see that.
at
At
least.
least, at least. That's dope. All he needs to do now is paint it. That thing is tight. That's phenomenal.
You're not even seeing the whole thing, so trust
I
it's even
know.
better than
I
what you
know.
saw. All right. So while he's coming back on, let's see what's up with the chat. Tron World, what's up? Great show Wednesday. Thank you for watching, sir. I hope you'll support the Epiphany Engine endeavor. That's a fantastic book. And for those who may not know what I'm talking about, check out the live show we did this past Wednesday on Epiphany Engine, the biggest, most incredible indie crossover event of all time is coming, and the Kickstarter just started on Wednesday. They're trying to reach $51,000. Last I checked, they're over $9,000 in the first day. I don't know where they are today, but please throw your support behind that project. All right. Richard says yes. The mic issues. Can everybody hear Mark fine now? Let us know. Bo Big says all's good. Chad Kinsler. All right, saying what's up. Derek saying what's up to everybody. Amir saying thank you for the summary because OG Rich wants me to buy all the books, all the tie-ins.
Mm-hmm.
I
You
mean,
don't need all.
Blood Hunt is
You don't
good.
need all. Blood Hunt is good. You don't need all the tie-ins. One of the things that I've said in this space many times is that I hate how Marvel specifically has these cross-issue storylines because more often than not, the stories aren't necessarily good and they seem like a money grab. In this particular instance, the main story is very good, and the cross-issue, the tie-ins that I get are Dracula, Black Panther, Midnight Suns, and I think those are the main three that I get. I don't get any of the other ones.
All right, Otis is back. Let's see if he's better now. How you doing, Otis?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. You still have a bit of a delay, but it's better than it was before. All right.
Yeah,
Jeffrey
sorry,
Thorne in the
man.
house.
Studio works when it wants to.
That's all right. We'll make it work somehow.
Appreciate the love,
shout
Mr.
out,
Thorne.
shout out to Jeffrey Thorne. Vagrin, hello.
He wrote one of the greatest Black Panther stories ever.
We've mentioned that before.
Who's T'Challa kissing? We're gonna get into.
We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there.
Okay. Jeffrey Thorne points out that Epiphany Engine's at 14,000. All right, so it's chugging along.
Nice.
Strange Academy is very good as well.
I don't have that one.
I have them. I haven't read those yet. I'm also salted. I was among the first 35 backers. My bad, man. My bad. I appreciate that. All right, let's get into this book, y'all. Let's get into this book. Where do we even start?
The first page.
Let's start with the first page. Okay. So, as we all know, T'Challa has been bitten by a vampire of Blade, and he's a vampire. He's struggling. We last saw him cross the border into Wakanda. Wakanda's borders are very weak and porous at this point because their government's crap without the king in charge of it. He goes to the necropolis, and well, I don't know if it was confirmed it was the necropolis. It wasn't the necropolis. It was a temple where they do the ritual for the heart-shaped herb. So he takes the heart-shaped herb to help stabilize the vampirism in him, which leads to an interesting question. Up to this point, gentlemen, T'Challa was powered solely by the level up he got in Fantastic Four 608, I think it was, something like that. where Bast gave him his powers of the King of the Dead. So up until this point, his powers aren't from the heart-shaped herb. It's purely from Bast herself. But the question becomes, did he lose something in terms of when he got bitten and turned into a vampire? Because now he has officially taken the heart-shaped herb, what would seem to be for the first time since that's happened. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Go ahead, man.
I'm still processing.
You're still processing.
I think his power obviously.
Okay. Yeah.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
No, I think. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're a little choppy, but we can hear you.
I apologize, fellas. I apologize to everybody.
That's okay.
Go ahead, Mark. Please. Go ahead, Mark.
Basically, I was just going to say that obviously T'Challa's power set has increased and changed because he has now certain aspects of vampirism in his body. It has probably increased his strength. I don't know. Well, probably he's not on the same level as a Blade or Dracula as far as what he can do is in transmuting his body into bats, rats, smoke, or whatever. But I would say that he probably has greater strength than he did before, greater speed. Even though previously his night vision was spectacular, it's probably on a whole new level now. So, yeah.
Well, the other
and I
thing
love
that we
image,
know,
by the way.
yeah, the other thing that we know is that now he suddenly has the powers. He's got vampirism powers. He can now control the living. You know.
That's right. From the last episode, last issue.
So, I don't know what his power set is at this point. I mean, it's kind of unique because you have someone who's already superpowered, now given vampirism. What does that do with his powers? Now he's also taking the heart-shaped herb. What does that happen? What does that do for him?
You would think some things might cancel each other out, quite honestly.
That's the point I'm trying to get to.
Especially when it comes to the heart-shaped herb, because it is well established that the heart-shaped herb gives him regenerative powers and abilities. So, as I've said, when we first had this storyline announced, it was always my belief, not remembering that he didn't have the heart-shaped herb in his system anymore, that having it in his system would burn out the vampirism, just like Wolverine, as an example. Wolverine can't be turned into a vampire, at least not for long, because of his healing factor. And so I thought that Black Panther's healing factor would burn out any vampirism in his body. So,
Well, it's also.
I'm glad you the Wolverine. Did either one of you ever read a what if story where it was what if Wolverine became Lord of the Vampires?
No.
No, it is one of my favorite what if stories. I mean, it is so cool. Like he does it. Like it shows how if Wolverine became the Lord of the Vampires, how he would take over the world. And it was beautifully done. I highly recommend it. Borrowing that from you, Mark. Seriously, it's a great story. But what you were saying about the whole canceling out and like the healing factor, I always thought the same thing. I thought that they couldn't mix. You know what I'm saying? If they do mix, he's going to be like next level. Next level. But we'll see what happens.
Richard points out a good point. He says, "What about drinking Dracula's blood from the Blade series by Brian Edward Hill? That's another power up that he's got.
along with what happens in this book, some of that stuff has to cancel each other out. I'm sorry, because that's a lot going on, right? He's been bitten by a
It's a
vampire.
lot.
He's got the heart-shaped herb. He's got some of Dracula's blood in him, and then what we're going to discuss later on that happens in this book.
Actually, the Dracula blood thing, I think that was Blade that drank Dracula.
It was. I'm
Blood.
thinking I may have misremembered something. Yes, you're right. Yeah.
All right, so
But
fast forward. He's now in Wakanda. Wakanda's been taken over by monsters, really, and we're gonna get more into. It's not just vampires that's the issue; it's monsters, because we start this new issue with one of the baddest of the bad. I mean, shout out to Sherilyn Eaton for going into the Marvel shelf and dusting off an old character we haven't seen in a long time, Varney. Now, for those of you who don't remember, Varney is, you can't really call him a vampire. He's more than that. He is an ancient creature. He's got some vampiric, tendencies, so to speak. He kind of looks like a gorilla, but he's from ancient Atlantis. Ancient Atlantis. We're talking pre-drowning of Atlantis, which is kind of interesting. There seems to be a lot more ties between ancient Atlantis and ancient Wakanda that really needs to be explored. I wish I prepared that, because I just thought of something. There was a Otis. I think you and I might have talked about this at one point. There was this book called Khazar, however you want to pronounce it. Khazar, that Christopher Priest wrote before he did Black Panther in 1998.
Yeah.
And in that series, he introduced a group of people, black people, that were ancient Atlantean sorcerers. Damn, I wish I remember what they were. Excuse me 1 second.
And while he's looking that up, one of the things that I find interesting is that across different mediums, Atlantis and Wakanda have always somewhat intermixed, conflicted, been allies, or whatever the case may be. And I'm thinking about the latest Avengers cartoon, because in that cartoon, you had going back, starting at the beginning of Wakanda, you had Wakandans interacting with Atlanteans. As we all know, in modern time, what we consider modern times, you had T'Challa, the ruler of Wakanda, being allies and then enemies with Namor. So Wakanda and Atlantis have a long history of dealings with each other.
The Bodwins. The name of the people are the Bodwins.
Never heard that before in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Khazar Volume 4.
I don't remember the name.
That was the name, was the Bod BHADWUANS. BHADWUANS. So she keeps establishing these ties between ancient Atlantis and Wakanda, which I find interesting, because Varney is directly a character from Atlantis, and we'll talk about it later. But she ends the issue with a tie to Atlantis as well.
So you've seen this character before? Because I don't recall ever seeing this character prior to this book.
Yeah, Varney's been around for a long time. He was in like Midnight Suns or something like that. Nothing that I really read, but I'm familiar with the character himself because I've read various books on vampires, and his name has popped up in the mystical side of Marvel. He was dead for a long time.
Yeah, I'm with you, Mark. I didn't know he existed either.
Yeah, I mean that's the shout out to Sherilyn Eaton for doing her homework. But yeah, so we see, but the important thing is it starts off with eons ago, the first blasphemy, and Blade has sent T'Challa on a mission to find the temple of the first blasphemy, We have no idea what that is. But T'Challa's supposed to find it. All we know is that it's somewhere in Wakanda. Now it's interesting on this first page,
I love it.
we have this girl who's being chased by Varney. Now this is ancient Wakanda. This is when Wakanda, so timeline wise for Black Panther fans, the originators were the first settlers of Wakanda, right? And the originators were the peoples that were immediately mutated by vibranium and turned into mutants for all intents and purposes. There's a book that if you're a Black Panther fan, you absolutely should have. It's this one right here, Protectors of Wakanda. You gotta have this book. You gotta have this book. In this book, they actually talk about the originators and define them. There's several. The Simbi, there are serpentine humans, the Vanyan, which are talking apes, the descendants of the white gorilla god of judgment, Gekri himself. Mark had mentioned that when we were talking before that Gekri seemed to be a Marvel creation. This book talks about Gekri. Anansi, the arachnoid people who took the name of their trickster father. The children of Olokun, the creatures of the sea, no one knows their actual name. The creeping doom, the dangerous insectoid swarm. And the Ibeji, the join, these two-headed giants had two heads, two spirits, two heads, but shared one body.
Hold on one second, before you go any further. The two-headed gods, didn't they show up during the Coates run?
Correct.
Yeah.
All of these characters I just read off all showed up during the Coates run.
Yeah.
In Volume 1, A Nation Under Our Feet.
Yeah.
These were the people that settled Wakanda first, and then Wakandans peoples came into the area in the Alkama Fields, which is the fields in the southern portion of Wakanda on the border of Naganda. The Nagandans hate the Wakandans because they feel that Wakanda's wealth and prosperity was because they pushed the Nagandans out of the Alkama Fields, which was once part of their territory. So the originators pushed the Wakandans into the Alkama Fields. A war broke out. The people that would later become the Wakandans went to war with the originators and ultimately got them pushed into another dimension through a portal.
So basically, Coates made the Wakandans colonizers, and that's another reason why I don't like the Coates ring.
Well, I suppose, yeah, that's a way to look at it.
That's the way it is.
So that's interesting. So Sherilyn Eaton, this woman's bringing in mysticism, history, metaphysicals. I mean, she's tying it all into this run. I think it's kind of dope. Let's get back into the book.
Yeah, going back to that page that you, when the young lady was running, she prays to Khonshu. Now, if you've been paying any attention to Marvel, the MCU over the past 2 to 3 years, if you paid attention to Moon Knight, you would know that Khonshu is the god that Moon Knight derives his powers from. And he is the god of travelers. Now, in Africa, as we all know, Africa is not a country, despite what some people may think. It is a landmass involving different nations with different belief systems, their own culture. Khonshu is part of what would be called the Ennead, Ennead. He is part of basically what we would call the Egyptian gods. And so she's praying to what would be known as an Eastern god, Khonshu. And then Varney ends up snuffing her out, as we'll see on the very next page. But Khonshu, of those Eastern or Egyptian gods, gets brought into this fray because one of his believers prayed to him.
Which Khonshu kind of took personally.
I mean, that's the whole purpose of gods, is that they're supposed to, they derive their power from the belief system of, their worshipers. And your job as a god is to protect and look after your worshipers. Well, he's not on his job.
Well, here's the thing. Khonshu is the god of the moon, and what his thing is protecting travelers at night. And the scene that we had with the young lady who was getting chased and killed by Varney happened at night. She immediately prayed to Khonshu and said, "Please protect me because I'm a traveler of night. I'm one of your followers and traveling at night." And he was unable to do so. Varney killed one of his followers who was literally praying to him for protection in the nighttime, which is his whole shtick. And so he's pissed. He's like, one of my followers who lives in Wakanda just got slaughtered by this demon. I'm gonna lop his head off. He's got his two, cutlasses out there ready to go to war. Bast stays his hand. Now these are gods from two different pantheons, as Marc said. Khonshu from the Ennead and Bast being one of the Orisha. Although technically she's part of the Ennead, but in Marvel,
she's part of the Ennead.
Yeah, she's part of the Ennead. But although she's part of the Ennead, Wakanda specifically is her territory. Those are her people. Those are her protectorate. She formed the Wakandans, and she's like, "Stay your hand. This is my hometown. Like, you can't go in there and just do whatever you like."
But here's the thing, though. I hear what you're saying, but the way I'm reading and interpreting this, okay, so Khonshu and Bast are technically part of the same pantheon, i.e., family, right?
Yeah,
just like Thor, Loki, and Odin are part of the Nordic pantheon, right? These two are akin to brother and sister, part of the same pantheon. When you read the story further, it makes it seem as if Wakanda was unclaimed by either pantheon, either the Ennead or the Orishas. It seemed like it was an unclaimed territory. And we'll go into it in a couple other pages, but that's the way I was interpreting it. Now, Bast may, very well interject herself in this landmass that is now Wakanda, but it did not seem that the pantheon of the Ennead were being worshipped by the Wakandans. It seems like they just plucked her out of that whole family and said, "Okay, yeah, you're our god," or she was like, "Yeah, you're my people," but not the whole entire pantheon. Is the way I interpret it.
Yeah, Wakanda hasn't technically been formed yet. This is ancient Wakanda before it's actually Wakanda. Wakanda was just a bunch of tribes with people settling the area. The originators are in this area, and as I said before, these tribes eventually push out the originators. So this is pre-Wakanda, but in the Wakandan area, if that makes sense. That's what she's referring to when she said this is an unclaimed land by either one of these pantheons. We can't just go ahead and do unilateral action. They might have a claim to it as well.
Yep. Because so then you got these two families who are in one area, like the Bloods and Crips. There you have the Bloods on one side, the Crips on the other side, in the same kind of area. Who's going to claim Crenshaw? Wakanda is Crenshaw. Which which group is going to get them? And that's where this kind of what this is like.
Right. So then we fast. Good. Good.
I was just say Bast is looking kind of good.
What'd you say?
I just said Bast is looking kind of good right there.
Oh Lord. So then we fast forward to the
present. She was definitely drawn right.
Yeah. See.
Mm-hmm. So then we fast forward to the present, and T'Challa is run into the wilderness. He's run into the nature preserve of Wakanda. Bast is cut out to him, and she's like, "What are you doing?" I mean, you're like, first of all, she's very disappointed because her champion got bested by a vampire. Not a good look for the acolyte of Bast. So she's like, what are you doing? You disappointed me. This is the first time he has seen Bast since Thor 31. Why is that significant? Let's talk about it. Let me show you Thor 31. This is the first time. Thor 31 is the first time T'Challa saw Bast since the end of Coates Run, where Zenzi's body was taken over by Bast, and she says, "Look, y'all handle this. I mean, this invasion stuff. I'm out. I got other things to do." The Orishas leave Wakanda. Bast leaves Wakanda, which leads to a crisis of faith that T'Challa had in the He Who Shall Not Be Named's run, because he's like, there's no Orishas, there's no Bast, and his girl Storm, who became sort of the pseudo god of Wakanda, she also left him. So Wakanda doesn't really have any gods right now, right? This is the first, but in this particular storyline, Boss shows up and asks a favor of T'Challa. Now, why is this important? Because who's the writer of this story? Cheryl Lynn Eaton, the writer of this Black Panther Blood Hunt series. This is the first Black Panther story I've seen her write. Here's what she says. She says basically that there is a temple in southern Egypt, one of her temples, that has a gate that leads to the afterlife, the Duat. And that gate has been breached. And it's a bad thing because monsters, plural, monsters can come through. This is specifically what she said. She says, there are worlds outside of the ten of your dominion. She's talking to Thor. And unfortunately, my father did not get me. No, that's not the point. Go to my temple. Within there are gates to all lands open to me. One gate has been broken. It must be mended. And that gate leads to Duat, land of the dead and dominion of the immortal Ennead. Now remember, what did she make T'Challa? King of the dead. This is Duat, land of the dead. She's sending T'Challa, who's the king of the dead, to the gate that leads to the land of the dead. And it says the dominion of the immortal Ennead, of which is the pantheon that she's a part of. Its gate has been torn asunder, leaving a path from that world open to all. And she says, there are things within Duat that must not walk amongst the living. Should any escape, T'Challa says, our world would be at risk. Why is this important? She said things. Ultimately, they go to the Duat and they fight Amut, which is like the crocodile god. He's not even a god. He's a crocodile creature from the underworld. Big deal. Battle ensues. They tie it up. Everything's fine. Mjolnir is supposedly used to close the gate. But she says there are things that could come through. We don't know what has come through prior to them arriving, to the gate. There are multiple things that could have come through this entire time. And I question, we ask, well, I haven't seen Varney in a long time. Who knows what else could have come through that gate? As we talk about what's taken over Blade, we all assume that it's what, Blade released into the world in his run. We don't know what the point of why Blade wants this temple to be brought back into the world. I'm curious if something else came through the gate. Sherilyn Eaton's the writer of this story and the one we're talking about right now. So maybe there's a nexus between the two. I don't know. Curious to get you guys' thoughts on that.
Go ahead, man.
I agree. No, I agree. I love that. It's like get like an Easter egg in Thor 31.
Right.
I'm just happy Bast is back. I am. I'm happy Bast is back. Bast is petty. She is for real. Like their relationship, her and T'Challa, it's toxic, man. You know what I'm saying? It's toxic. But he got to do what he got to do. He got to do what he got to do. I'm just happy she's back, and I'm happy that they're introducing other people too. I'm not going to say anything because that might be another part of the show. But I'm just happy that she's back. because when she's around, things happen.
Just a couple quotes from the comments from the chat. Taylor loves quotes one of the best love stories. That's true. Jared says T'Challa looks weird. He needs his beard back.
Disagree.
Richard says something interesting. There's a possibility that some of this is connected to the Hulk monster story.
Okay, let me jump in right here because I'm reading.
Please.
So there is basically this so-called green door that lies beneath our reality. And there are monsters down there that kind of where Hulk gets his powers from. And so there's this big entity that Hulk has been fighting for the past 2 to 3 years, and I mean our time, 2 to 3 years, in his book. He's in New Orleans right now, but that's not relevant. But that's an interesting take because understand, when you have all these pantheons, you have different realities that aren't necessarily ours, but all of them have doors to our main reality. Because understand, in the Norse pantheon, you have Hela, who is the queen of hell, which is their afterlife. You have what other pantheon in Norse? I didn't mean that. In Greek, Roman Greek, the pantheon. You have what's the king of the dead? What's his name? Oh, I cannot believe I can't remember that. But anyway, they have a god who is in charge of their dead. So there are all of these different realities that are surrounding ours that can bleed into ours with different doors. I understand what Richard is saying, but I doubt that the door that is under Bast's domain is the same one that's affecting Incredible Hulk's issue that's going on with his book.
There's something I wanted to show you guys. If you are ever curious, Marc is a big fan of gods and mysticism and stuff like that. If you are ever interested in learning about the gods and the pantheon of gods in the Marvel Universe, here's a book you need to pick up. It's called Thor and Hercules, the Encyclopedia Mythologica. This is not an easy book to find. I'll warn you. I lucked out and was able to get a copy after looking for months. But this book is incredibly dope. Oh yeah, it's got every god that you can imagine in Marvel Universe is in this book. Every one of them, including the Ennead and the Orisha.
Paul has mentioned that book before, and I went on the hunt for it. I cannot find it, have not found it, wouldn't mind having it. But going back to the Greco-Roman pantheon, it's Hades. I could not remember that to save my life. Hades in charge of the dead in that pantheon. And so, as I said, there are different realities that are tangential to ours, but they don't necessarily intersect or cross. So I understand what Richard is saying, but I don't think that there's an actual connection. Did you freeze?
Let me show you. No. I was trying to find a page from the book. Here's one page. This is called the I can't pronounce this word. Heliopolitans. This is another word. Huh? This is another word for the Ennead. This is another word for the Ennead pantheon. It's the Heliopolitans.
Oh, I've seen this. I've seen that image online.
Yes.
Yep.
I didn't know it was from that book, though.
Here's Khonshu.
That's a dope image.
Here's Amet. Here's Bast. Here's Sekhmet, etc. These are all the Egyptian gods, quote unquote.
Now, the reason why I know a lot of these gods, for one thing, Paul and I come of an age, and I bet my man here did too, but back in the 1970s, there was a show called Osiris. Osiris was Isis. I'm sorry, Isis. There was a show called Isis, and Isis, along with Shazam, had a live action Saturday morning live action show. Isis, not knowing it at that time, was part of the Egyptian Ennead or the Egyptian pantheon. She's part of the pantheon, the Heliopolians that Paul just showed. And because the Thor comic book, and I was a huge Thor guy, because Thor is a god, a lot of these characters made appearances in the Thor comic book, specifically Set, who Thor battled several times in his own title.
So just showing you a couple excerpts from the book. Here's Horus. So what's cool about this, it also tells you, all their powers, abilities, all their gods. You can see all the connections between all the various gods. The only negative thing I would say is it doesn't tell you what issues their first appearances are. As a comic collector, I know that's always kind of what you want. But there's Horus, there's Khonshu. Here's the Lion God, which you first saw in the Avengers. I forget the Avengers issue, but I'm sure you know what Otis, the red covered issue with Sekhmet, the Lion God.
I know what you're talking about. Yes.
And then Bast herself, the Panther God. Seth, who shows up a lot in the Thor.
He shows up in Thor and Captain America.
Yeah. Toth, which is another big one. So yeah, definitely a book that if you can find, just buy it because you're not. It's not hard. It's not easy to find the book. There wasn't a lot of them.
So going back to going back to the gods real quick. We know that we have the Illuminati in the Marvel Universe. The Illuminati are basically leaders from different Marvel hero groups, Avengers, X-Men, Atlantis, etc. They come together to deal with issues that, their teams can't deal with. Well, there was a god Illuminati where you had the Sky Fathers of all earthbound pantheons. So among them were Odin, Zeus, Horus, etc. And there was a book. It's a Thor annual, and it was Thor annual number 10 that came out in 1982. So if you are interested in mythology like I am, this is a book that you also want to add to the collection because in that book, and there's another one in Thor number 300, they got together then because they were trying to stop celestial invasion. So they were trying to pull their powers to stop the fourth host of the Celestials, who they felt were going to destroy Earth. So they came together, met in secret, to try to figure out how they were going to go ahead and fight these sky gods, whose power dwarfs those gods. And so that's another book that you want to add to your collection. So I would recommend. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Finish what you're saying. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I would say that if this type of stuff interests you the way it does me, you're going to want to get Thor like 298 to 300, somewhere in there, and I'll get the number in a moment. And also you want to get Thor annual number 10, which deals with another aspect of the deities that are earthbound.
I have to do a correction on myself. I said the one drawback of the book, the Thor and Hercules Encyclopedia Mythologica, is that did not tell you first issues. In the back there's an appendix which actually tells you the first issues that all of these gods can be found in. So that's kind of cool. What I didn't notice the first time I read this book, the one I said all the gods are in them. This book was done prior to the Coates run. So the Orisha are actually not in this book. The Orisha are not in this book. Now the Valdu are in this book. Let me show you who they are, because I'm sure you've seen them before. And I'm probably mispronouncing the name, but for purposes of our conversation here, this is the Vodou. This is the gods like Anansi, Buluku, Shango, but also the gorilla god Gekri is here. Legba, which is part of, if you're familiar with Dr. Voodoo, that's one of them. Ogun, god of war. Mark, you and I talked about that last week with Murea Iodeli in his Aquagon book. Ocean, goddess of love. Oya, goddess of wind. Samedi, god of death and disease, also from Dr. Voodoo. And Shango, the god of
Somebody,
thunder and lightning, which is his first appearance, I believe, is in a Thor book as well.
It is. It is. I want to say
So
it's in
these
that
are
Thor,
these.
I think it's in that Thor annual. I think. Oh, well,
Yeah.
it tells you right there. It's on the thing.
Yeah. So these are mostly the West African gods. But because this book was published before Coates introduced the Orisha into the Marvel Universe, which is a cool point, is that Coates introduced the Orisha into the Marvel Universe. So this is kind of cool.
right?
We've gotten into the weeds. Let's get back to the book.
Yeah, I apologize. I do that sometimes. It's a rabbit hole with me. Let me just go into these comments before we move on to the Black Panther book. Frustrated fans finally showed up. Jeffrey Thorne, Hades of
Hades,
Pluto.
yes.
Hades
I
of
couldn't
Pluto.
remember that to
Okay.
save my life. Yeah.
For everyone, your best chance to get that book is a bookstore because a lot of these encyclopedia books were sold in bookstores and not in comic stores.
That's good to know.
Jeffrey Thorne, Almighty
Mighty
ISIS.
Ice. You remember that?
I
You know
remember.
what? That actress died.
It was
not
the
that long
ISIS. It was the ISIS Shazam Power Hour or something.
Hour.
Yeah.
She died not that long ago.
A quick tree, gonna waves can wins. Thanks for
We're
the
not,
quick
hey,
dive.
Vagrant, we're not talking about 420, bro.
Oh Lord.
What's going on, Rep One?
Let's get them likes up. Peace up, guys. All right, thank you, bro. Appreciate that. All right, let's get back to the book.
So we talked about.
I promise we're gonna
Constantine.
go. So
Yeah,
you know, T'Challa finally sees Bast. Bast is like, look, you're kind of disappointing me, bro. Pick your ass up. Get off the ground. Come with me. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry, Bast. You know, I have to defeat. It's like, yeah, calm down. First things first. I'm gonna take you to the spot and get you patched up because you kind of a mess right now. That's basically what she's telling him. And so she takes him to a place to meet Anuket. Now, Mark, you can go ahead and tell us who Anuket is, but notice one of the things she says, which is important. She says, these waters were once barren land. Anuket flooded the region as a gift to Wakanda, a consolation for having left this realm unprotected. The Orisha and the Ennead vowed that would never happen again.
So this goes back to what I was saying: is the land that we now know as Wakanda was not claimed by the Bloods or the Crips. It was just left open. And at that time, I guess this is when the whatever that monster's name is, when he came in, was able to attack them. And so they came together in this book to defeat that monster. Now, basically, what Bast is about to do is about to take.
Hold on. Before you get there, before you go there. The last line she said, the Orishas and the Ennead vowed that would never happen again. That is what was said by T'Challa's ancestors in the last issue. T'Challa drank the heart-shaped herb in the temple. It took him to the Dajalia, the mystical realm, and where he met all these other panthers. Those other panthers were his predecessors in the form of panthers. And they were disgusted by the fact that he sacrilegiously would poison or dirty up the Dajalia while he's cursed with the vampire curse. And one of his predecessors jumped on him and said, look, understand, you can tell your boy Blade, this is Wakanda, where we will not be conquered again. That's our motto. We will never be conquered again. And that's where this statement comes from. Again, the Orisha Ennead vowed that would not happen again. And you get to see where that mentality comes from later on in this book, which is kind of cool. Go ahead, Mark.
So basically, Bast is getting ready to take her to meet her sister, Anuket. Paul should have a picture of the way Anuket was depicted in real life. And by real life, I mean ancient Egypt. The ancient Egyptians really worshiped these what we call characters, but they were their actual gods. And in doing some research for this, it says Anuket was usually depicted as a woman with a headdress of either reed or ostrich feathers. She was usually depicted as holding a scepter topped with an ankh, and her sacred animal was the gazelle. She was
I,
also she was
I,
also shown suckling the pharaoh through the new kingdom and became goddess of lust in later years. In later periods, she was associated with the cowrie, especially the shell, which resembled the vagina. And you have that picture of her.
yeah.
So these, for us, so like for example, me being a Thor fan, Thor was just a comic book guy to me until I actually learned and discovered that he was worshipped by ancient Nordic people. And this is how the character or this god, quote unquote, was originally depicted in Egypt.
I think it's interesting that they made sure that when they're depicting the god, that she had a booty.
If you call that a booty, bless your heart, because she ain't got nothing back there.
A little one, a little one, a little one.
Now
At
here's what I
least they,
find
they
interesting.
noted it.
Now here's what I find interesting. To go back to her picture, that headdress reminds me of the way Angela Bassett, Ramonda, her headdress in Wakanda Forever. So I
Yeah.
just want to point that out.
Good eye. Good eye.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
So she also
Yep.
is part of the Ennead or the Egyptian gods or the Heliopolins, because I think that's named after Heliopolis, which I believe was their Mount Olympus. I think, if memory
Mm.
serves.
There was a couple of things.
Those are the other gods. Yeah.
There was something else. Oh, this. I wanted to show this. And this will probably become a little bit more relevant later on. Anuket was usually depicted as a woman with a headdress of either reed or ostrich feathers. She was
Just
usually
read all that.
depicted as holding a scepter. This is what Mark said. But she became a goddess of lust. That was kind of interesting for what we're going to show next. She was originally the daughter of Ra, but was always related to Satet in some way. For example, both goddesses were called the Eye of Ra, along with Bastet, Bast, Hathor, and Sekhmet. Sekhmet being the lion god, right? Which is the sister or brother of Bast. There's another Black Panther series, right? Ultimate Black Panther. Who are the two big bads in that book?
Ron Khonshu.
Ron Concha.
Ron Country.
And this god Anuket is the daughter of Ra. I just thought that was kind of interesting. So anyway, going back to the Black Panther book,
All connected. All connected.
everything's connecting. I'm wondering if Sherilyn Eaton and Brian Hill are talking to each other. One little thing, a line that came up in this series, this Blood Hunt series, is Blade calling T'Challa the first of the last, and he never knew what that meant. And and Bast finally explains it to him. Because she says that is what you are. Your people, your line, were the first people of this land. We did not know mankind would be so inquisitive as to inspect the darkest wilderness. The Wakandan quest for knowledge was initially for your downfall, but it later became your greatest triumph. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Wakanda's into science and always wanting to quest for knowledge. That became one of their strengths.
So look, so for Blade to say that, he has to have extra knowledge outside of just being a vampire. Somebody's
Exactly.
talking to him. This may not even be the Blade that we actually know. Somebody is in his ear telling him this stuff. He may
Right.
very well be possessed. He may be possessed by one of these ancient gods or demons, rather.
And I wonder if that demon or ancient god is the one that he pulled out of his own series, or is it one that came through that gate that Sherilyn Eaton wrote about in the Thor 31? That's
Yeah.
the question.
Yeah, something is going on.
One, I have look. First of all, art wise, this series, this artist Kareem, what's his name? What's the name of this artist? Kareem Fahira, something like that. This dude's art is fantastic.
Fareed Karami.
Fareed
Kareem.
Karami. Your art is absolutely fantastic. My only singular criticism.
Yes.
T'Challa's hairline is way too far back. I mean, brother looked like his lineup. Dude had an off day. His forehead.
He's going through some things.
I mean, look, maybe, you know, becoming a vampire ages you, puts your hair back, makes his forehead a little bigger. I don't know. This lineup right here was not popping. So, might
You got that Maurice White from Earth, Wind, and Fire. Yeah.
All right. So, here's where we get into the fun stuff of this book. This is, I mean, because remember, Black Panther's not really in a lot of this book. This is more, what I consider this a key is for the history that Sherilyn Eaton breaks down. And I love history stuff in Marvel Comics. It was Khonshu who first discovered that the first had been enslaved. Remember we talked about the first people, the first settlers, the colonizers, these tribes that settled the area that would later become known as Wakanda. She's referring to them as the first, T'Challa's predecessors, his ancestors. They had been enslaved by Varney. The demon had stolen vibranium from the fires of Ta, Ta being one of the gods, and from the Ennead, and dared to use the metal for shackles to bind mankind and a gate from which to ascend to godhood. Another gate. Sherilyn Eaton's talking about another gate.
So pull up a picture of Ta while you're talking.
And one last thing. Remember what I read in the Thor 31. Bast says that her temple has access to multiple gates to multiple realms. So there's multiple gates on Earth that Bast has access to that lead to a whole bunch of different things, one of them being the land of the dead. I just thought that was kind of interesting. I think she's going to tie all this stuff together.
So check it. While Paul is talking about Ta, he should have a picture of that god. Ta is...
Is it about the one you sent me?
Correct. So basically, Ta is referred to as an ancient Egyptian deity, a creative god, a patron deity of craftsmen and architects. Ta is known as the Egyptian creator god who conceived the world and brought it into being through the creative power of speech. A hymn to none of that's important, but understand Ta is the Egyptian equivalent of Hephaestus, because he is the god of craftsmen. So that would be his duplicate over in the Greco-Roman pantheon, would be Hephaestus.
Now, what's also interesting about Ta is that he's also the god of metallurgy, of making stuff, but specifically the one who deals with metal. And what's Wakanda's claim to fame? Vibranium. So he has a stake in Wakanda as well, because he is the god of metallurgy.
Seems like he should have been mentioned well before now.
Well, you know, there wasn't a lot of writers like Coates and Easton writing Black Panther prior to 1998. That's all I'm saying. All right. Going back to the book.
So show the page where you have all the gods.
You don't want to follow. We're trying to go page by page.
Yeah, right. It's on that very next page. It's where you have all of them talking after Bast has brought. When you talk about his lineup, it's on the very next page.
Okay, I will.
So basically, you have the representatives of the two pantheons coming together. You've got below that, you've got Khonshu, Bast, and Ta of the Ennead or the Egyptian gods. Then you have Eshu of the Orishas. the monkey god right there, as I said, in looking this stuff up, I couldn't find him in any of the other actual pantheons.
Gekri, that's the one I mentioned before.
Right.
He's
Yes. Right.
part of the Vodou Inuit. So in essence, he's kind of like he's a member of a third pantheon, which is not depicted here because you've got the Inuit, you've got the Orishas, but then you also have the Vodou, which is the Shangos and the Anansis. Gekri is part of that pantheon of gods. So there's actually three pantheons of gods being represented here.
But here's the thing. Paul just mentioned the Orishas, and let me just tell people what that is. The Orisha are any of the deities of the Yoruba people of southwestern Nigeria. They are also venerated by the Edo of southeastern Nigeria, the Yu of Ghana, Benin, and Togo, and the Fon of Benin. So these are considered the Western gods, the Ennead or the Eastern side gods. So and Wakanda is smack dab in the middle. So that's why it's important. It is unclaimed in between these East and West.
Yeah, let me show you the map. This is one map of Wakanda, not necessarily the singular map, because there are other maps that show Wakanda closer to this area around the Rwanda-Uganda area. But in this depiction, Wakanda is in between Nigeria and Niger. One would wonder if Sherilyn Eaton's version of Wakanda places it on this particular map version, because she mentions the importance of the East and West pantheons of Africa, and Wakanda would be right smack dab in between both of those. But it also would not be too far from this area where the Vodou pantheon would be, which is where Gekri would come from. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Of these gods, one of these other gods is mentioned is Eshu. You want to talk about who this god is, Mark?
Yeah, Eshu is known as the trickster god and messenger in the Yoruba religion of southwestern Nigeria. So he would be the equivalent of Loki.
Anansi.
He would be the equivalent of Loki from the Norse mythology and Mercury from the Greco-Roman mythology, as well as Anansi from, I guess he's also
the Vodou.
An Orish. Yeah.
The Vodou, actually.
So that's what the type of god that he is. So, a lot of these pantheons have members whose powers correlate with other type of pantheons.
Yeah. Yeah, I think every pantheon's got a god of storm and thunder.
Right.
And a god of war and a god of love.
But here's the thing, the ancient peoples of the world, with absolutely no scientific notion whatsoever, created gods in order to explain the world around them. When you see a storm in the sky and you're living in a hut, you're thinking, oh, okay, well, that must be Shango if you live in certain parts of Africa. Or if you live in, Sweden or someplace, you're like, oh, okay, well, that's just Thor doing his thing. The gods were created by man, not the other way around. And so each culture created something to explain the world around them.
That's blasphemy.
Okay.
All right, going back to the book. So the gods are having their little powwow. Now this is back during ancient Wakanda. Wakanda hasn't been claimed by anybody yet, but they all have an interest in it. And this is the discussion. It was Khonshu who discovered that the first had been enslaved by Varney. The demon had stolen vibranium from the fires of Ta, because remember I said Ta is the metallurgy god. So he has kind of Ta has a thing with vibranium, and dared to use the metal for shackles to bind mankind and a gate from which to ascend to godhood. The demon toiled for many nights under the cover of darkness, but when that shining metal snared the light of the full moon, Khonshu was made aware of Varney's machinations and was compelled to intervene. So they feel some kind of way about that. This particular gate was actually made out of vibranium. And then we know
Wow.
vibranium is not just a bulletproof metal. It absorbs energy. And we also know vibranium absorbs mystical energy. So that's why using it for a gate, mystical gate, makes a lot of sense. Because Ta says, a temple with a gate made from my ore. This cannot stand. I don't understand. Vibranium has always been depicted as just this rock that came from space and landed on Earth. Ta refers to it as my ore.
I'm glad you mentioned that. How does he claim that's something that just came here? I'm so glad you mentioned that because I was wondering that very thing. How can you claim this is yours when it came from elsewhere? I don't
That's a good
understand that.
question. That's a good question.
Hmm.
Khonshu says, I want the gods of the surrounding realms to be made aware before I act as a show of respect. Remember the map I showed you? And I said, where Wakanda is located, you've got the Eastern Pantheon, you've got the Western Pantheon, you got the Vodou Pantheon to the south, the surrounding realms. So I thought that was kind of cool. So Khonshu says, very well, Todd. Anyone else want to accompany us? And Bast says she's going to go too, because her progeny are there. So Bast's interest is in the people that are there, the colonizer tribes that are there. Gekri said that he wants to go as well. The Orisha deserve a representative. They shall have one in me. Now that's interesting. Gekri has always been
Yeah.
part of the Vodou pantheon, as I showed you from the Marvel's own encyclopedia. List Gekri as part of the Vodou, not the Orisha. The Orisha is not even in that encyclopedia. But in this instance, he says he's representing the Orisha. That's going to have to be explained or retconned at some point by some. And that might be something we might want to talk to Cheryl and Ian
Yeah.
about. And he says, they will have two. Koku, the ever-burning, will join Osu. Koku's the god of war.
He's the equivalent of Mars or Ares in the Greco-Roman pantheon.
Go ahead and break that down, Mark.
So, yeah. Goku is one of the most highly feared warrior undergods in the traditional religion of Benin. One who fails to respect the Goku during a ceremonial trance may have a sacred calabash placed on their head until it becomes excessively heavy. He is, of course, one of the Orisha, aka the West Side gods. He's the Tupac of that pantheon. I mentioned Mars and Ares, who are equivalent in the Greco-Roman. Over in the Norse pantheon, Odin is considered the god of war, also Tyr, Tyr, the one-armed, one-handed god. So that would be his. That would be his equal. So he's kind of a badass.
All right. People have been talking in chat. Let's catch up to the chat before we move on through the book. Vagrant says, thanks for a reminder about hitting the like button. Please, everyone, take a second, hit the like button if you're digging the show. If you're not a subscriber to the Black Comic Lords page, please subscribe. It costs you nothing. Lets you know when we're going to do things in the future, and it helps out our algorithm so we can keep doing the show and get the page to grow. Frustrated fan says, wait, Black Panther Blood Hunt came out already. Damn, I got to go off for a minute. You got to catch up, bro. Marwan Williams. What up, folks? I'm getting in late. Well, better late than never. Vagrant. Even Null tried to make a play at Wakanda and got slapped. Wakanda don't play. Thank you, Jeffrey Thorne.
Thanks. I was just going to say that. Thank you, Mr. Thorne.
Marwan Williams. I've been getting and have the Blood Hunt series from my comic shop. Yeah.
It is one of the most. It's one. Right. She did not have any case. But this Blood Hunt series is one of the best cross-issue storylines that Marvel has had in quite some time. I want to say Secret Invasion, quite honestly. And that was like 10 years ago. The goddess of okay. That's funny.
That's crazy.
That is funny.
King Sigma said I'd wife her. All right, bro.
Bless your heart. Bless your heart, King. Y'all are funny.
Y'all off the chain
Yeah,
tonight.
but
King Sigma, where the white gods at?
I forgot King Sigma is a milkman. My bad. Completely forgot.
Oh Lord, they have no powder here. It's Varney's king, the original king of the vampire.
Yeah.
Yes,
I, I don't know where he made his first appearance because, like I said, this was my first time seeing that character that I really
Varney actually created Dracula. That's how old he
Right.
is.
Right.
We don't have dreams. He has movies. Okay. T'Challa had the Stephen A. Smith haircut. He did. He did. Am I wrong? That haircut's not.
Yeah.
T'Challa's hairline's
Yeah.
messed up. T'Challa had OJ's haircut. Wow.
R.I.P. to the GOAT.
Ravenel
It has
Dupree.
been.
The art on his Black Panther Blood Hunt series has been phenomenal. It actually has, minus the haircut.
Shout out to Raph.
As she was also known as the demon from Abbey.
I don't know what that is.
If vibranium can absorb mystical energy, can Black Panther block Mjolnir?
I've never seen
He doesn't.
that happen.
The answer is he doesn't have to because Mjolnir knows Black Panther's
He doesn't
line.
need to, right?
He doesn't need to.
One of T'Challa's ancestors actually wielded Mjolnir.
Yeah. Mosey, I believe it was. In the Avengers 1,000,000.
Okay.
Jeffrey Thorne says,
Yeah.
and Planet
On
is flag
top,
on the
he
unique
could have been
metal.
first one to see Planet on the unique metal. That makes
Right.
sense. That makes
Right.
sense.
That's a good point. Because remember, what we're talking about in this book, that's what makes this book so interesting. It's the history of Wakanda before it was Wakanda. Right? Where it was a land that was the only people that were there originally were the people that got transformed into the originators. And then you had these other tribes that came into the area, but the gods hadn't carved up and said who has what yet. So before even Mosey came and got exposed to the heart-shaped herb or the vibranium, what have you, it's quite possible that god said, hey, as soon as the rock landed, hey, this is metal, this is my thing. The rest of you guys, this is my thing. That makes a lot of sense. Richard asked, isn't vibranium on the moon?
Not to my knowledge, no.
No,
I've
there's
never seen that
some
right
in the Arctic. There's Arctic vibranium. There's Savage Land vibranium, but I don't know of any on the moon. By your recommendation, I'm getting and have the first 2 copies of Aquagon.
Very
You will
good
not
book.
be disappointed.
Good stuff.
Aurora is the storm goddess.
stuff.
So,
Let's not go into any weeds. Let's not do that.
all right,
We've been
let's.
going for a long time.
All right. I remember the screen cap. Someone threw Mjolnir at T'Challa, and he said, "Hello, old friend." The hammer just flew around him. That's right. Okay, back to the book.
So we've seen the guys get ready for war. Let's just go on ahead and go to where Anuket shows up, looking good, coming up out of the water. Hair, she ain't worried about getting her hair wet. Ain't no weave. That's real hair. And
She got good hair too.
Yeah. So she's not the equivalent of Poseidon, but over in the Greco-Roman mythology, Poseidon had several daughters. I think they were the Ennead, Aennied, or something like that, who were water nymphs or something like that. That would be the equivalent for Anuket in my mind.
So through this, Bast is basically recounting the history of Wakanda before it was Wakanda to T'Challa. And she said, our mistake was that we focused on Varney's defeat rather than his destruction. His body was never recovered, nor was his temple. That carelessness left the possibility for his return. And now he has taken advantage of that opportunity, but he will not have that advantage for long. Anuket, my sister, I know that you are here. Please come. Anuket is the goddess of the River Nile, or specifically the southern portion of the River Nile that goes into the borders of Nubia, ancient Nubia. So she is, although she's a member of the Ennead, she's kind of the goddess of Egypt and Nubia. She is the goddess of the rivers. And part of her power set is not just controlling water, she's also the goddess of healing.
Yep.
And So she immediately sees T'Challa. Bast is like, "Hey, T'Challa, Anuket, T'Challa," and Anuket's like, "Ooh, T'Challa kind of look kind of good. I don't know what to make of that." But we quickly see that she definitely has an attraction for T'Challa.
And it is not uncommon in mythologies for human beings to be smitten by gods. You know, over the Greco-Roman mythology, Zeus was a fool. There is no way around it. He just made kids willy-nilly left and right. So humans and deities mate with each other on a regular basis. And whenever there are progeny, they're known as demigods. Prime example is Hercules. Hercules is a demigod because he is the son of Zeus and a mortal woman.
So Bast asked Anuket, "Hey, take my acolyte to where the temple is. He needs to find the temple before Varney and Blade and all these forces of evil find the temple of the first, what was it called? The first sin or whatever it's called. The first blasphemy." So she takes him under the water. Now, meanwhile, little subplot story. We have a story where Shuri is talking to none other than Doctor Doom. Oh, what happened to Otis?
He signed up.
Yeah. All right. Now, Doctor Doom keeps popping up throughout Blood Hunt, right? He showed up at Strange Academy. He showed up in the very first Blood Hunt issue because his realm is the one that could not be... He already had a mystical barrier in place to prevent vampires from invading.
Let me just interject something real quick.
Please, go ahead.
You have to understand, what you guys have to understand is that we're dealing with pretty much magic and mysticism, right? Dr. Victor Von Doom is one of the top 5 sorcerers on planet Earth, and he ain't
and
number
he's
5.
Not number 5.
He is not number 5. Dr. Doom himself, along with his scientific brilliance, is a great sorcerer. He's probably number 3 behind Doctor Strange's wife. I'm gonna put her number 1. I don't care what anybody says. She's number 1. Stephen Strange is number 2. Clea is probably number 1. Stephen Strange is number 2, the Sorcerer Supreme, and Victor Von Doom is probably number 3. So he, as the ruler of Latveria, despite what you may think, he's a despot, he's an evil man, whatever, but he looks after his people. And being the forward thinker that he is, he wanted to make sure that his land was protected from all sorts of threats, including vampires. So he has certain wards or spells in place that prevent vampires from coming inside his borders. And so Shuri, knowing that her people are in danger, are seeking to send some of her people to Latveria, all the way in Eastern Europe, to have them protected. And that's what this conversation is between these two rulers. And Dr. Doom is like, you know what? Where's T'Challa? You don't know? Okay, you know what? No, y'all can't bring your people here, because unless you know where he is, his people here, he's gonna be on my doorstep, and I don't want any smoke with him. I don't have time to deal with it. And so that's what all this conversation is about.
That's what's interesting, is because I remember reading that and wondering, there's 2 ways you can interpret Doom's reaction to Shuri.
Yep.
Where he's saying, "Where's your brother?" Is it that A, he's belittling Shuri and saying, "I'm not dealing with the help, I want to deal with the king"?
Yes.
That's one way you could view it. Is he, because Doom could be kind of a jerk. Or is it that he has some type of ulterior motive in wanting to know where T'Challa is and what he's up to? Doom seems super prepared for all of this, and you kind of wonder if he knows more than what he's letting on.
I take it a third way, though. I take it a third way that, look, I, Victor Von Doom, know how T'Challa is about Wakandans and his people. If his people are here in my borders under my protection, T'Challa is not going to be too far behind. And I don't want to have to deal with this uppity Negro on my doorstep following these people. So unless and until you can tell me where he is and we can have a conversation, your people can stay right where they are. That's the way I took it.
Yeah.
When was the
And he
last
kinda
time?
just,
When was the last time that him and Doom? The last time him and Doom like were at odds was it Secret Wars? Was that
Yes.
the last time they had beef?
At
Last time I
odds.
recall was Doom. Well, yeah. I guess Secret Wars because that came after.
At odds, then I would say Secret Wars. When's the last time they spoke? Might have been at Victor Von Doom's wedding.
Okay.
Did you go to that?
Yeah,
That was in the Fantastic Four book.
Yeah, T'Challa, Namor, and Doom were in the same Fantastic Four book for that wedding.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know that. Okay.
Here's a couple things that Marc had mentioned before. Ravenel Dupree says, if Wakanda had a contingency plan to unblock the sun when Null and the symbionts attacked, then why didn't they implement the same or similar strategy at the beginning of his Blood Hunt crisis? Wakanda has a Phoenix contingency, a Skrull contingency, a Thanos contingency, and a Hulk contingency, but not a vampire contingency? That doesn't make sense to me.
And that's something that I've been saying for 2-3 weeks now. Yeah.
Well, the best answer I could give on that would make the most logical sense, is that all of those contingencies you talked about were contingencies put in place by T'Challa when he was king. He ain't king no more. It's a democracy now that's run by a bunch of bureaucrats. And we know from the last run, Dr. Eve Ewing's run, that the people of Wakanda have been complaining that the government's just doing a really bad job. Nothing's working right. The buses don't run on time. Taxes are too high. The rich are getting richer. The poor are getting poor. The black market is increasing, and black markets increase when people don't have the goods, access to the goods that they want. That's what causes a black market to increase. That's literally what Eve Ewing's run was about. So Wakanda is not in the place that this ain't your daddy's Wakanda anymore. Wakanda's really fallen off. So much so that they did when their country was falling apart and getting invaded and what have you, who did they turn to for defense? Namor. Literally the guy who destroyed the burning Zana when he was empowered by the Phoenix Force. That's how bad things are at Wakanda. They turned to their literal enemy for defense and kicked out their king.
Let me say this.
Yeah, that's why what's happening.
Paul's talking about this, and this happened in the run before this most recent one. I have no independent knowledge or information about that because I stopped reading that trash. And the fact that that was part of that run is just absolutely effing ludicrous. That makes no logical sense whatsoever. That's like America turning to Russia to help protect us from China. That just doesn't make any sense. That writer is just horrible and should never be given another comic book ever in the history of the world. That's just stupid.
Stop it. He's a good writer, just not the Black Panther.
Whatever.
But yes, he should never touch Black Panther if he can. Let's see. Back to the book. So yeah, this conversation did not go well.
Basically, long story short, Doom said no, y'all can't come here. That's the end of it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm skipping ahead here. So basically, the group of gods finally catch up to where Varney and his vampires are. Bast changes from like 3 different forms. You see her as a panther. You see her in the mystical thing that we see now that she's had since the Coates run. But in ancient Wakanda, she had this half panther, half woman look, which was kind of interesting. She's literally, I've never seen a half panther, half person before. A were panther. And that's what she is here.
That's pretty dope.
Yeah, there's some
That
good
was pretty
world
cool
building
image.
in this run. Very good world building. Um,
So, what do you think so far, Otis? I know you've having some technical difficulties a little bit. What are your thoughts so far about what we've been talking about in the book so far?
Um, this issue is amazing. It's like Paul said, the whole world building. Like we're going in an entirely different realm, like beyond what we even thought. Wakanda, like she's talking about the dark area past the border of where I'm at. You know what I mean? Like this stuff that wasn't mentioned. And I'm when she says that, is she talking? Well, I don't know if I can say it yet because we haven't gotten there. But there are other areas that haven't like even been talked about. And that's what I love about this. It's just history. This book is like literal history. I'm a Black Panther fan. I didn't mind that he took a back seat in this book. Do you know what I'm saying? Like we learned
yeah,
a lot in here, and
yeah,
we're introduced to a whole lot of not just characters, but story behind the characters, origins behind the characters, things that have been going on that we don't even know about. So it just opens up a whole new world. You can do a whole series without even having T'Challa in it, and I don't think anybody would complain because this stuff is that captivating.
This is a Wakanda book. This is with
Exactly. Yeah.
T'Challa. Yeah, it's a Wakanda book with T'Challa as a side character. And even though the title on the front of it is Black Panther, I take no issue whatsoever with him being so-called sidelined or a
Mhm.
secondary character in this because we're learning a lot of history about the nation and how it ended up to where it is now. I take no issue with that.
Yep. I agree.
now there's a
100%.
page. There's a page here that Otis and I talked about, and I know this is really important to Otis.
Yeah. Let me get my
Because
props
Otis,
ready. Let me get my
Otis
props ready.
is not just a big Black Panther fan. He specifically is a big fan of the character Kilmonger.
Yep.
Now,
I
if you
know.
read the Kilmonger series, right? I wish I'd pulled up that. I should have pulled up that series when I had a chance. If you read the Kilmonger series, you should be familiar with. By the way, if you don't have this book and you're a Black Panther fan,
Yep.
you are sorely, sorely, sorely missing out. T'Challa Declassified.
Must have.
Let me see if I can make this bigger so you can see what I'm talking about. There's this character that was introduced in the Kilmonger series called Kiluna the Betrayer.
Yes.
And who wrote that series? Otis?
Brian Hill.
Brian Edward Hill.
Brian Edward Hill.
Now, what is the significance of this particular character, Kiluna the Betrayer? Wakanda, I'm going to read this excerpt. Wakanda has many gods and goddesses among the Orisha. There are gods we seldom speak of. One such involves a tale rarely told, a tale of two sisters. Kilula, oh jeez, I can't say this word. Kaliluna, the betrayer, is night and wind, but her story forgotten, her truth abandoned. Vengeance is a debt left upon you by your enemies. At Wakanda's founding, now what is the story? What has this whole book been about? Right?
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about the founding of Wakanda.
Yep.
It says, at Wakanda's founding, the people turned to Bast. What is the pages that we just showed you? Right? Let's take a look. Here are the people. Here's Bast saving the people from Varney. They're turning to Bast for help. Right? At Wakanda's founding, the people turned to Bast, but her sister Killaluna wanted all the power and authority for herself. Jealous of Bast, she attempted to destroy her sister and said she was defeated and consigned to oblivion, forgotten. Mirroring her sister Bast, Killaluna the betrayer chose her own champion. Except where the Black Panther served as protector in Wakanda, Killaluna's champion was given strength to carry out vengeance. Her champion's vengeance is her vengeance. Hers is the story whose lesson is the anger and vengeance led to ruin. Perhaps it is a story worth remembering. Killaluna's avatar, her acolyte, was Kilmonger. When you first see Kilmonger appear in Black Panther comics in Jungle Action, he's able to defeat T'Challa, who has the heart-shaped herb in his system, in unarmed combat, right? How does a regular dude defeat the guy who's, for all intents and purposes, superhuman in hand-to-hand combat if he doesn't have a power-up? I always thought that was a bit mysterious. It didn't make any sense to me. Like, it can't just be that he's in the gym and he's able to outpower T'Challa. He had a power-up from Killaluna, which is what the Kilmonger series tells you about before he engaged with T'Challa. Now, why is all this relevant? I know that it seems like we're going down in the weeds. Oh, Otis, let me make you big, man, so people can see what you're showing there. Go ahead and speak about it, Otis.
All right, this is a page from the Kilmonger miniseries where Killmonger's talking to Killaluna about, what's going on. She's telling him, I can give you the power that you need for vengeance. He is wondering why Bast walked away from him. And she's talking to him like, you don't need Bast. You know what I'm saying? You got me, baby. And this is an original page from the book. I absolutely
original friggin' artwork from the book. Otis has his friggin' black gloves on.
Yeah.
That's how you know Otis is showing you some fire. This is original artwork from that book.
Yeah, I was very, very happy to get this. You very rarely get pieces where you got you get pencils, inks, and color. But Juan Ferreira, I think that's how you say his last name. I love his pages. I own several of them. But this page right here is one of the conversations, the second conversation that Kilmonger has with Killaluna. And the next page, Bast yells at Kilmonger and takes him out of the trance. But she is the one who bulks him up like that. Before this picture, it was for those who read the book, he was slimmer. He had the haircut from the movie. And then the next time you see him in this abandoned building talking to her, this is how big he is.
Yeah, he used to get his ass. He has to get his ass kicked a lot.
Oh yeah, yes. And this page right here, this is from one of the last pages in the same series. This is when Eric comes back to Wakanda, and T'Challa lets him in. This is the retcon, and they're in the hall, and Kilmonger is looking at the statue of Bast. Then he looks over and he's like, "Who is that?" And T'Challa says, "We just know she's a betrayer. We don't know what she did. They don't talk about her around here, but this picture is here as a reminder of how bad she was and how she betrayed Wakanda." But they never talk about exactly what she is. Killmonger knew who she was because she was the one who sent him. But this page right here is important to me because one, it has the landscape of Wakanda, which is absolutely incredible.
That's beautiful.
That's a beautiful, beautiful piece, man. That right there is beautiful. You got Wakanda, you got Bast, you got Kilmonger, you got T'Challa, and you got Killaluna, all in one page. I had to own this, and this is one of their earlier. This is before they even started Beaver, so this was early times. I'm hoping that that little cat that was different colored than the rest of them is her, because that's the same
Jumping
pattern.
ahead. You're jumping ahead.
My bad. I'm sorry.
That's all right. No. You're on point. You're on point.
I
On point.
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance to share what you're talking about. So let me show people what you're talking about. Because remember, in the excerpt I read out of this book, what did it say? The people turned to Bast, right? And Killaluna was jealous. The people turned to Bast. Look at this panel from this book. This is the people turning to Bast. Bast says to them, listen to me, for 3 days you will follow the Panthers west. For 3 more, you will wait. And then all of you will return. To this place? I can't. This place is Wakanda. You can and you will, because I command you to. And Bast does not command cowards. Trust in me, Niami. Remember, she says, trust in me, Niami. Where's that name Niami famous for?
That's right.
Niami is the name of T'Challa's birth mother.
Yep.
Trust in me, Niami. The gods make a promise to all of you tonight. Those who till this land will never wear chains again. The Ennead and the Orisha will see to that. This one freaking page summarizes all of Wakanda's history in one page. And who do we see? Not only Bast in human form, surrounded by panthers, who do we see down here in this little section right here?
Yep. And they showed her, she was in the page before as well. And that's when that was the first time you saw her. You haven't seen that cat in nowhere else in this book. All you've seen are Black Panthers. All of a sudden, she pops up. So again, it could be a coincidence. I don't think so, because those markings are the same. Definitely the same. So I'm hoping we get a little more of her. I fell in love with this character the minute I saw her. And to know that Bast has a sister, and now we know she has another sister. You know what I'm saying? So like this just goes. This can just go. I just think this is dope.
Real quick, how did you get those pages?
I was looking online for Kilmonger original art, and I saw some images, and this image popped up. Clicked on it, and it took me straight to a website that had this artist, everything that he had done, Punisher, Green Arrow, all types of original art. You click on it, says how much it is, gives you the dimensions. You reach out to him. His representative hits you back. He's from, I want to say Argentina. I think Argentina. And the representative has some artwork. He had some at home. This particular page happened to be at his place. So he had to send it to the representative and send it to me. So I just looked up the images, and on that website, each manager manages like 5 or 6 different artists. So you find an artist that you like, click on him or her, and whatever they have available is there. Some is reasonable, some are out there. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of places they're cool and they can work with you too. You know what I'm saying? If something's $1,000 and you're like, hey, I got 500 right now. Can I hit you in 2 weeks with the other 5? They do it. You know what I'm saying? As long as you send that 500 non-refundable. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's how I got the page.
Cool. Paul, let's go ahead and wrap
now
up
this
book then.
So last page that I want to talk about, and this is the one that the internet's been talking about. So T'Challa, while all this is going on, T'Challa has left with Anuket to find the Temple of the First Blasphemy. She takes him underwater to travel there. Although T'Challa has a bunch of powers, he's not a fish. He can't breathe underwater. But Anuket is the god of water. She's the god of rivers. He notes she's strong, too strong for me to battle. And so I accept the will of a god I do not believe in, even if that blind faith leads to my death. But death is not what Anuket offers. Instead, she dangles a new form of life before me, the enduring blood of a river goddess. I can sense her essence in the dark waters before I can even taste it. And so she bites her lip and starts to bleed. Then she kisses him, and he says, I drink her in and immediately understand the blood coven's ferocity. To feed from a god, to be one with immortality, if only for an instant, creates a desire I might end worlds to fulfill.
Mm-hmm.
These are bars.
Mm-hmm.
Sherilyn Eaton got bars. This is poetry.
Yep.
This is dope. And then this scene, this picture, this image. When's the last time we saw T'Challa get his groove back?
What's funny
It's been a minute.
What's funny is on the Twitters, I saw one account, I can't remember who it was. They posted this picture, and that particular individual was like me, wants to see T'Challa end up with Storm. But then they said, "Yo, I wouldn't mind seeing T'Challa with that person right there." So I thought that was pretty funny.
Let me pull that up because this is hilarious.
A lot of people have been talking about that image or whatever. So yeah.
This is what Marc is talking about. So the image came up, and this amp knocker says, "Storm, girl, your ex moved on from you and upgrade to another goddess. You better leave Basic Boy and go get your king before he lay that pipe."
That's one. That's just one person. I saw that one, but there was another one as well that says something somewhat similar. So yeah.
So although Storm has moved on with Craig the corny dude, who I despise for no other reason than he's not T'Challa. It looks like, T'Challa might be able to get his groove back too. I mean, brother's been lonely for a minute.
But here's the thing though, in regards to that. Gods are not known to have long-lasting relationships with humans. They are more like hit it and quit it. I'm gonna get what I want, and then I'm gonna move on to the next thing. So even if he does end up getting her, it's gonna be something very brief. And one of the things that I've said in this space many, many, many times, one of the things that's lacking in comics is black superhero love. I'm all for my boy getting his rocks off. There's nothing wrong with that. But as far as actual love and relationships, something that's long-lasting and meaningful, he's only going to be able to get that with another human, not with a deity. And I want it to be with Storm. Personally.
Unless she gets semi-depowered and goes from a god to a demigod who ages, but still has her powers over water and healing. And then... I would say this: T'Challa's taste in women is pretty good. He goes from Storm to from the goddess Storm to the actual super goddess Anuket. At least he's not settling. Storm, on the other hand, goes from the king of Wakanda, super dude, to Craig the corny dude,
to a scientist. But anyways, long story short, we literally spent 2 hours on this one book, and
because it was a dope ass book.
All that to say, this was an extremely very good book.
Hold on. Before we wrap it up, one last thing. The very last page. We gotta talk about the very last page. Oh, yeah. Now we talked about the fact that Anuket was taking him to the temple of the first blasphemy. We talked about the fact that there seems to be a lot of ties between ancient Atlantis and Wakanda. Varnays from ancient Atlantis. Before Atlantis fell under the water. When it was still known as Lemuria, probably. Where does she take him? To Atlantis. That's where the temple is. And notice the thing about the Atlanteans. Notice this dude right here. Does he look familiar?
Mm-hmm.
Wakanda forever. He looks like one of the Tamokans. Right? From the Wakanda Forever movie, which Marc doesn't know what I'm talking about because he refuses to see that movie. But he looks like Atuma from the Tamokans from the Wakanda Forever version of Atlanteans known as the Tamokans.
The water
So
Mexicans.
remember what I've always told you guys. I've been telling you this for 3 years now. The Marvel comics are no longer the source material for the MCU. They are the promotional materials for the MCU, which is why we now have things like this, where Atlanteans never looked like that. They never did stuff like that. But because the MCU has it, they're going to incorporate that into the comics.
Yeah.
But it was an extremely very, very good book.
Let's just finish up these chat talk comments. I need Anakit's phone number. Help her with that. T'Challa was about to risk it all.
There's nothing to risk.
Yeah,
there's
that's not even a risk.
There's nothing to risk.
Facts. Jeffrey Thorne, no facts. Mac Daddy of Wakanda. I'm all in for African goddesses becoming heroes on Midgard just like Thor. Demigods and the rest of them. Why not? That's what I'm saying, man. How many African goddess, demigod superheroes do we have?
The only Africanized god that we see on a regular basis is Khonshu. And we see more Moon Knight than we do Khonshu. So, yeah.
Quick question. Could T'Challa impregnate this goddess?
Yes.
They have... Well, I mean, they always have stories where male gods impregnate human women. But I've never... Has there ever been a story where a human male has impregnated a female god?
Yes.
Yes.
There have been a couple over in the Greco-Roman pantheon who exactly I cannot remember right now. But yes, it does happen.
Yeah, if they so choose to let it happen, I guess.
Right.
But I like where your head is at. Otis.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that would be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Why not? Hasn't been done yet.
And that would be a demigod. I mean,
it would.
T'Challa's child with that entity would be a demigod and would be a very powerful. So yeah.
And the other thing is, remember what I just quoted said. The comic books are promotional material for the MCU, and in the MCU, he's got a kid. If that's the way they decide to take it, even though I disagree with it, it would be logical for them to have T'Challa have a kid, and the kid in the MCU is not with Storm, so that'd be consistent as well.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's do a commercial real quick before we go on to the next two books that we got.
Commercial bathroom break. I'm gonna hit a commercial, and then we will come back and talk about these other two books that we read and whatever else y'all want to talk about.
Shout out to the Black Comic Lords for having me on the show, and also for being true believers in every aspect of comic books and nerd culture.
I'm Eve Ewing, and this is the Black Comic Lords.
Hello, this is Larry Fuller, the creator of Evan, with a shout out to the fine folks at Black Comic Lords. Keep up the good work.
Hey, y'all know it's me. This is OMG, and this is Black Comic Lords.
Black Comic Lords.
Yo, Black Comic Lords.
Black Comic Lords.
Black Comic Lords with your boy Lonzo Starr. Check in.
You're here with the Black Comic Lords.
You're here with the Black Comic Lords. Stay demented.
I am Professor John Jennings, and I'm a Black Comics Lord.
Black Comic Lords for life. Let's go.
BCL for life, baby.
Black Comic Lords.
Black Comic Lords. Follow.
Subscribe now. Yeah.
That always amused me.
I left my Method Man book. Oh, that's gonna get signed by Meth. Wow.
3 hip hops in the bag.
I might need to buy one off of you. I left. Yo, you go Otis.
What? What is going on?
Every record right up. Hey, yo. Hey, Miss O.
What's good? This is unexpected.
Let's go, man. Let's go. Every record is perfect what we do, man.
How you doing?
What's up, boy?
What's going on?
Wait, was that Otis in that last bit?
Of course. Otis is famous.
Okay.
We're just lucky to have him on.
So, next book, also from the Blood Hunt, Dracula. Now, even though Dracula is on the front, this is mainly a Brienne, or what's her name, Brielle storyline, who is Blade's daughter. Basically, Dracula, obviously, as the king of the vampires, has been supplanted by Blade. This was not his doing, Dracula. This was all Blade. And so Dracula doesn't want things to be this way. So he's going to try to defeat Blade. So he's trying to enlist Blade's daughter to defeat her father. Something about that doesn't make sense. She's been, a vampire hunter for like 2 weeks. So I don't understand why they think that she, with her very limited experience, has the capabilities, knowledge, skill to defeat her father, when Dracula should be able to take him out relatively quick. That's something that doesn't make any sense.
I don't think it's a matter of her physical skills, though. They said you're the only one. They said they referred to her as his weakness. I think it's more a matter of they're hoping that whatever part of Blade is still within, whatever demon's taken over his mind or what have you, might be able to reach him and give him a moment of weakness, or which they would allow them an opportunity to defeat him. I don't think it has to do with her physically hand-to-hand combat. She even says, "My dad taught me how to fight." Like, I don't think she even thinks, "Hey, I can beat him in a fight." I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, I just always thought that was weird. This is a good book. It was a good story. It's not one that we need to spend 2 hours on.
Renewal by Anderson's 30-day sale. Don't waste another minute dealing with your difficult.
What the hell was that? But at the end of the day, Brielle. So all of these people have congregated. All these people. I mean, Tigra. Not the Shroud. What's that guy's name? The Shroud. What's his name? The brother.
Fisticonchu?
Who?
No. The also dude who's trying to take over from Moon Knight. His brother, his sibling.
Hunter's Moon. Hunter's Moon.
Yeah.
Hunter's Moon. Peter Parker.
Hunter's Moon.
Sorry. Spider-Man, Miles Morales.
Can you guys not hear me?
And a bunch.
Yeah, we heard.
Hunter's Moon. Yeah. All these people have congregated over at Doctor Strange Sanctum Sanctorum, right? And so they're discussing how to defeat the big bad, who is Blade. And they tell Brienne, whatever her name is, that look, you're the only one who can defeat Blade. Well, this is a lot to put on a 14, 15-year-old girl. So she takes off into the night trying to process everything that she's just been told. Well, Dracula, who brought her from Atlanta to New York, goes after her. But before he catches up with her, she's running through the streets. She ends up fighting a bunch of vampires herself. And then out of the blue, or out of the night, I should say, Daredevil shows up to help her battle these vampires. And then the two of them are on a rooftop discussing everything. She just basically vomits all this information and all these emotions that she's going through about what she's dealing with, And he, being the person that he is, a lawyer, he sits up here and listens to her, and it's a shoulder for her to cry on. And then after they're talking for a few minutes, Dracula shows up to basically bring her back to the Sanctum Sanctorum so they can go ahead and figure out a way that they can defeat Blade's big bad. That's the truncated version of this book, but it was
It's a
a
dope
good
issue.
Yeah.
No, it is.
It
It was a good book.
It's Dracula, but it's not his book.
My only problem with Brielle is her outfit. She's from Atlanta. It's a mild petty point. She's from Atlanta. She's raised in Atlanta, what have you, and she's dressing like a emo punk kid from the '80s with the choker chain with the studs on it. You live in Atlanta. How many 16-year-old sisters do you know dressed like that?
Well, first off, I don't know any 16-year-old sisters because I'm not Robert.
That you
Kelly.
see? Do you see around Atlanta dressing like that?
Typically, I don't get out there. But that being said, I don't see her go to dress out of the ordinary. So, Ravenel Dupuis in a high school.
I don't know if it's my mic or yours, but I can barely hear you. You're coming in now.
Well, hopefully everybody can hear me, but I said Rav is a teacher himself at Atlanta High School, so he would be able to speak to that issue better than I could. But personally, I don't think there was anything wrong with how she was dressed.
That's my only gripe. The artwork in the Dracula book is better than Bloodlines.
Yep.
Her own series that she had.
Yeah.
That was my one gripe with that series, is that I think the art style did not fit the tone of that book. Correct. And the art style in this Dracula book has been spot on.
Correct. Dracula, and as well as the main Blood Hunt storyline, where she's also appeared. So, yeah, that was the major criticism that he and I both had months ago when the Bloodline storyline was ongoing. The artwork just didn't match the tone of the story.
Didn't match at all.
But it is a very good book. It's a very good book. What are some of the chats?
Let's Juan said he was like, "Don't play a brother." Nice try though.
I guess he's talking about I think maybe Daredevil trying to fight Dracula, which was a no-go. Dracula could have killed him 150 different ways. What else?
All right. So that's it. Last book we have here.
Green Lantern.
We didn't read that much.
This isn't a particularly good book. Paul can probably talk about it more than I did. I read it today. The series Green Lantern War Journal started out very strong.
I honestly had
the series started out
very strong. Very strong.
But the past 3 issues, it's just not hitting them for me. It's just, I'm not impressed with the story anymore. I'll continue to get it.
It honestly feels like the writer had a story that was originally only supposed to be 8 issues, and he's dragging it out to 12. That's what it feels like. This story should have been wrapped up by now. And if you want to do 12 issues, fine. Then wrap up the first storyline and move on to another storyline. But this storyline is it's going on, and it literally felt like filler. It literally felt like filler, and I was honestly kind of bored with it. It took me a while to finish the issue. I fell asleep 3 times reading it, and I don't mean that figuratively.
Yeah, I can't say that I would recommend this book. Obviously, the Blood Hunt storyline, highly recommend. I can't say that I would recommend Green Lantern anymore.
It doesn't help that I read the Black Panther Blood Hunt book before I read this one, because that book was obviously a far superior book.
Yep, absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
There's that.
All right, so that was
I think it's all the books we had.
That was it.
And you didn't watch any television this week, so we have no books to talk
Well,
about.
hold on. That's not true. Instead of going into typically what's coming up next, because that tends to take a while, I don't want to do that tonight. What I did watch this week was The Boys, the latest episode of The Boys. That show is spectacular. I don't know if you guys are watching it. It's over there on Amazon Prime, based on a comic book. My understanding is that the live-action series has been significantly better than the actual written word book. It's just so very good. They introduced a new character in episode 1, I want to say. What's her name?
Sister Sage. Sister Sage.
Sister Sage. The actress who plays her is a beautiful, beautiful sister. Let's start there. She is her superpower is her brain. She is an extremely very smart individual.
She is an adult version of Moon Girl.
Okay. Perfect. Adult version of Moon Girl. Homelander sought her out to join the Seven because they lost Starlight because she's now against them. They lost Queen Maeve, who they think is dead, who he thinks is dead. So the Seven, which is their version of the Justice League or the Avengers, have to have 7 individuals. So they get Sister Sage as one of them, and then they get this white racist chick named Firecracker, whatever, to join the team to fill out the ranks. Sister Sage is helping Homelander basically take over the planet. And one of the things about it is everybody is afraid of Homelander because he is the Superman amalgam for the boys. Everybody's afraid of him because they know they can't beat him. He's super strong, super fast, can laser beam your brains out. So pretty much everybody does what he says. Last episode, the Deep, who is the Aquaman or Namor equivalent, was going to be forced to perform fellatio on A-Train, who was the Flash or Quicksilver equivalent. And he was fitting to do it because he was afraid of Homelander. And Homelander's like, you know what? I'm tired of these yes men. I need somebody else on my team who can tell me what I need to know. And
stand up to me.
Correct. And he specifically sought out Sister Sage. In less than 5 minutes, Sister Sage told Homelander all about himself. And he was like, okay, you're the one I need. You're going to help me basically take over the planet. And she's this super genius, nefarious, Lex Luthor, Dr. Doom type. Spoilers, sorry. My bad. We should have had the spoiler.
We should have did a spoiler alert video.
Right. But basically, she's this super genius who's trying to help him take over the world. At the end of the last episode, which I think was episode 3, maybe 4, you see Sister Sage get together with the Deep. Now, it didn't make sense because Sister Sage is really, really brilliant. The Deep is really, really, really dumb. And the two of them are getting together, like, physically. As the camera pans out, you see this instrument on her table that looks like it has blood on it. It's a long, like, pencil-like substance item that looks like it has blood on it. We don't know what that is. In this episode is about people having to deal with past hurts, past traumas, past dealings. And you've got like 3 different storylines in this particular episode, which made it so very good. Homelander, who was brought up in a lab, who was literally abused as a child, which made him the psychopath that he is now, went back to where he was created in order to deal with or put to bed all this trauma and deal with this trauma that he dealt with as a kid. Did you watch the episode, Paul? Have you seen the episode?
I didn't see the last episode. I saw the episode where Sister Sage and the Deep got together, but not the episode after that.
Okay, so I don't want to give too much for you because you haven't seen it, but, you know, like I said, Homelander goes back to where he was raised. He is a lab-created individual. He was not natural born. It's a very, very, very good episode, a very powerful episode. Without getting into too many spoilers, sorry, Mr. Thorne. Over on the social medias, on the Twitter specifically, a lot of folks are upset at the season because they didn't realize that the series was making fun of them. And by them, I mean right-wing racists. This particular episode and this particular season, it is
like literally, they literally even call them out by name. They're like, Homelander seems to be trending with white male incel men over 50, which is the entire MAGA fan base.
Right. When you watch the season, this season specifically, Homelander is the fascist type authoritarian figure that mirrors the whole MAGA group of individuals, right? Starlight, who initially was billed as the Christian conservative person, is now viewed as the liberal standard bearer, right? It has pissed off a lot of conservative people who don't want to deal with their own internalized misogyny and racism. But it is, so it is very, very blatant in the most recent episodes of this series. It's an extremely good show. The last episode was very, very spectacular. Otis, do you watch the show?
No, I have not. I have not. I've seen the memes and I listen. I don't know if I could. It's not. It sounds like it's like out there, man. Not that I don't get into like controversial stuff, but some of the things that I've seen and heard about, I don't know if I could watch it. It's just not for me. Not for me.
The first episode of the last season took a lot of people by surprise. I'll just say
was that the Herogasm episode?
Yeah, the Herogasm thing was
basically,
that was a lot.
It was a superhero orgy.
It literally pushed the boundaries of what you're allowed to show on television.
Wow, really?
For all intents and purposes, it probably should be an X-rated television show.
It's a very, very good. It's a very, very.
And that doesn't take away from the fact that it's an excellent show.
Yeah, very, very good show. Okay. So all that being said, that's the only thing that I've watched this week. Highly recommend The Boys.
Yeah, I agree. And with regard to the Sister Sage character, I thought it's cool that the only one who's willing to stand up to the MAGA type fascist, racist, Hitler's wet dream character is a black woman, a dark-skinned black woman. And it was interesting. Their very first conversation, he goes, "I want you to come work for me," and she's like, "No." And she's like, "Why not?" He's like, "Because you're a narcissistic, fascist white dude, and you're not going to take lip from a black woman who's smarter than you are." She's very, very honest, super honest. And he's like, "How do you know I won't kill you?" And she's like, "Because you need me, obviously, or else you would have killed me for just saying what I just said." She's a dope character, and
she is fine.
People say like, she doesn't have any superpowers. She has the greatest superpower of all. She sees all the angles. She knows how to simply whisper the right thing to the right person at the right time, and she plays the long game and plants the seeds to ultimately flip people, make them do her bidding. It's almost like Professor Xavier, but she just outsmarts people and thinks 10 steps ahead of people and sets up the pieces on the chessboard so that she's actually altering reality with what she does. She's so smart.
When Homelander shows up at her, I'm assuming, apartment, the thing that stood out is the books. She is a brilliant person. Now, behind me, I'm in my mom's office / library, and you can see some books behind me or whatever. My mom is a retired teacher, and I've got literally hundreds of books in and around me. Sister Sage had thousands of books stacked high all around. It's like all this chick does is read and think. Absolutely brilliant. It's a very, very good character. When you watch this episode, I literally fell in love with her. She was already tight as hell to me, but in this particular episode, when she's talking to the Deep, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's my type. She's absolutely my type. I love her. Great episode.
Okay.
Great episode.
All right. Take a cold shower there, dude.
Shut up. No need to. It's a good character.
Take a drink. You're thirsty. All right. So we have, let's see, Louisiana Kids. Can we get Otis as a permanent guest to appear on Friday, Sunday, and Wednesday shows? I like his perspective on things. Otis is a busy man. First of all, Otis has an open invitation to any Black Comic Lords live that he ever wants to go to. So
I appreciate
you got to ask him to show up. He'll show up when he wants to show up, but he doesn't have to ask us to show up. He says, "Hey, I want to come on," and he's on. It's as simple as that.
Thank you for the person who made that comment, and Paul. Thank
Louisiana
you
kid.
very very much. Appreciate it.
Oh, come on,
Louisiana.
man.
Thank you very
Bro,
much.
you're fam. It doesn't, you don't need you don't need an invitation. You just come on whenever you feel like you're coming on.
Can I say something real quick? I
Come on, man. Of
wanna
course you can.
I want to thank the two of you. First and foremost for inviting me in here and allowing me to talk with you guys. I really really dig this. Show off my stuff, put on some gloves, you know. But the reason why it's really really cool is the two of you have been on for quite some time, and I look forward to your conversations. I learned so much from the two of you kicking it. It's amazing. I just when you guys come on, I put my ear pod in one ear, so just in case my wife still want to talk to me, but y'all talking to me too, and you know what I'm saying, and, I'm paying attention, and like the knowledge that the two of you have, and like Mark, you with Thor and your fan castings, and when you not only talk about a star that's on a show, but you break down what other movies he was in, what great series that he was in. Don't check this one out because it was kind of boring, but you get so deep, like you're like Siskel and Ebert. You know what I'm saying? But like with your recommendation, so it's truly dope, and your spectrum of knowledge is absolutely amazing, and I enjoy listening to you. And Paul, you that guy. The way you talk about what you talk about with the passion, and how much you love the Panther, and how mad you get about though he who shall not be named, and all that type of stuff. I love listening to you guys. So being here is a real honor for me. This is truly dope. So I appreciate you having me in your house and allowing me to just hang out and talk about this wonderful book, this awesome character that we all love. And thank you. I truly appreciate it.
And you know what's funny that you said? It's funny that you say Siskel and Ebert. The hashtag that I always use over on the Twitters is Black Siskel and Ebert. So if you ever put that in, you'll see my comments about a show, a movie, or something like that. And in fact, before I got kicked off of Facebook because I was banned for unknown reasons, I had a whole page.
It's not unknown.
Shut up. It was called Black Siskel and Ebert because I would always go to advanced screenings of movies, and then I would post movie reviews under that tag. So it was funny that you said that because one of the things that I absolutely love are movies and TV. So that's one of my other things. So I really do appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Otis, you stole my thunder, man. I was about to actually, tell you it was an honor to have you on the show, man. I always thought I was like the most hardcore Black Panther fan until I met you, bro. I mean, I remember one of my first interactions with you online is I had posted my my Wakandan flag, which I have up on that wall with all my Wakanda stuff. And you were like, and you reached out to me, you're like, bro, where'd you get that flag? And I told you I got it on Etsy or something. And you're like, oh, thanks. And it was like, that was my first interaction with you. It was like on a Black Panther level. And I was like, oh, another hardcore Black Panther fan that get how cool it is to have a Wakandan flag up in your comic book room, man.
Right.
And
it's right up there.
And I see the stuff that you have and stuff that you post and your knowledge and your passion. I mean, I'm in awe of you, man. I really am. And getting to meet you and hang out with you in Orlando a few months ago, that's one of my top moments in life as a comic book fan. Just vibing with you, bro. I mean, I could spend all day just talking and just vibing with you, man. And there's not a lot of people I can say that with. Just this other dude on the screen with is one of the few people, that I actually like to hang out with, and you're one of those too. So, yeah, man, I appreciate you coming out, man. I appreciate you accepting the invite to come out.
No doubt.
Thank you very much.
Definitely, yeah.
Before we sign off, make sure to get through the rest of the comments if there are any. Before we sign out.
Well, that was the last comment. Was Otis, Louisiana kids? He wants you as a permanent guest. Otis, you got to come back sometime, man. Whenever you feel like it.
I would love to come back to argue with Marc about Coates' run.
I'm ready for that. I hated it.
I would love it.
I tell you what,
I would love to. Honestly, I would love to hear your perspective. Yeah. Seriously.
Understand, Otis? He has not read this book. He does not own or read this book. This book changed my entire impression of the Coates run. This book made me respect Coates' run even more. This book is phenomenal.
Here's the thing: when that book dropped, I've got like 3 actual books that I still need to read, and I didn't want to buy anything else until I got through these other books that I have to read. So once I get through those, I'll go ahead and get that and the other book that Paul showed.
My only criticism of this book is that, the quality of paper they had and making it all black and white. This book deserves so much more, and I hope they come up with a deluxe version hardcover.
I agree.
This is a book that deserves a hardcover, full color, glossy paper version.
Yep.
You see, I have it dog-eared. I've got flags on it, on pages that I think are brilliant. Between that,
I bought 2 copies. I bought 2 copies because I had to highlight the other one. Yeah, I got that right over here.
You got to have those 2 books, man. You got to have those 2 books, and the Atlas book, the Wakandan Atlas book.
That's the one I'm really looking forward to. I gotta find that one. Somebody in the chat mentioned that going to an actual bookstore, and I didn't even think about that because I was over on eBay or something. Paul, do me a favor, text me the name of that book again so I can search for it again because I don't remember the name of it.
The Thor book?
No, the one with all the gods.
Yeah, that's the Thor. The Thor and Hercules. Yeah, the Thor and Hercules.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do me a favor, text me the name of that so I can look for it.
Quick side note: that Wakandan Atlas book. There's 2 versions. There's the one version.
I haven't found it yet, man. Nah, go ahead. I haven't found it yet though. I'm still need to get it.
It took me a minute. It took me a minute to find it. It's the cover's different, and it has like I think 7 or 8 more pages, and it's also a in the back there's an actual Wakandan map that it's like in a not a manila envelope, but a Wakandan design envelope, and you open it up and you can open it up and see Wakandan map.
Hey, do you so you have that book, correct?
Yes, I do.
Is it handy?
I'm
curious. Okay, so are you on the Twitters?
The Twitters. I love that you say the Twitters. It's awesome, and the social medias. That's all. I always listen for that when you're talking. But anyway, no, I am not. I heard that it's dark over there, and my son told me not to go, so I don't.
Well, the reason why I asked is I wanted to see that map to see where they have I guess would be considered an official map, where they have Wakanda situated versus what was shown tonight. So I'm just curious.
I think it's a map of Wakanda itself, not where it's located in Africa, right?
Oh, okay. Is it Wakanda itself?
Right, yeah. It's Wakanda itself. It's like because Don McGregor was the first person to make the Wakandan map. Yeah. And it's jungle action. It's a retcon version of that. So I'm wondering if they're going to be using that. I actually wonder if he even knows that they changed it. I mean, it's not real different, but it's definitely different. So
is it the one in the back of the Coates? Is the one that's in the back of the Coates run books?
On the back of the Coates run. It's a shame. I should know this. I do have the omnibus right here, but it's big and clunky, and I don't want to pick it up. I think. You know what? I don't think so because it looked new to me.
Okay.
Like I'd never seen it before. The color scheme was different. It was like a weird brown and green. See, right? Don't make me. Hold on. So that's the only thing about having all this stuff. You gotta be real, real careful because if you hit
Oh
something,
damn!
it's
You
all
got the
fault.
big boy.
It's all fault.
Huge.
You got the
Yeah,
big boy
so
omnibus.
this is how much I love the Colts run. You know what I'm saying? This has all of it. And I will say this, like even I talked to Richard, and the Colts run is something that is meant for you to sit down and read it from front to back. It's not it is not a monthly thing. It was cool getting it like that, but sitting down and rereading it, it just flows. It flows like a novel. It's like Jungle Action. You know what I'm saying? Jungle Action, that's what it was meant. It was meant to be a novel. And if you read Jungle Action straight through, that's the way it reads.
I agree
I do
100%.
not see a map in here. Yeah, I do not see a map in here.
If you come across one, if you come across a map, I'm just curious to see what the official map looks like, because the ones that I sent in the chat or whatever are ones that I Googled or whatever. So I don't know how official those are.
Okay, I'll take a picture and I'll send it to you. I'll send it to Messenger.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I definitely will. Yeah, 'cause I don't see it in here. But yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. So if you could find that version of it, I believe it's a
Was it Walmart that did it?
Costco exclusive. I believe it's a Costco exclusive. It cost me like maybe $15 more. But it's totally worth it. I think. I think it's totally worth it. So if you pick that up, and you're absolutely right. Like the information that's in there, along with Declassified and this Protectors of Wakanda, like I love T'Challa, I love the Black Panther, but you can literally read about Wakanda. It has nothing to do with Black Panther and still be enthralled into it because there's so much. It's so much. So so that's it. Yeah. I don't see a mapping.
That's why I loved the issue that we reviewed tonight, that Black Panther Blood Hunt #2, because I love world building, and I love going into the lore of Wakanda, without it being predicated on we're just trying to mantleize the Black Panther thing for MCU purposes. This was actual world building within the Black Panther universe, and it was really dope. It was really dope.
I got one quick question. I wanted to ask you knowledgeable gentleman of Black Panther. I would like to see T'Challa as a villain. I don't think he's ever had a run. Okay, and now just hear me out. Hear me out, brother. Hear me out. Okay. Now you're a DC guy. You're a DC guy, and I know you know who Owlman. The opposite of Batman. Okay, from the I can't remember the cartoon. That's where I was introduced to him, right? I fell in love with his character because he was Bruce Wayne. He reminded me of the Maker.
Yeah.
Was it?
Moral Saw. He was
right,
exactly.
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, exactly. Now, can you imagine T'Challa like that?
Right.
That would be.
I talked about that. I talked about that with the Coats, not the Coats run, with He Who Shall Not Be Named's run. That was one of the criticisms I made, is that instead of doing yet another deconstruction of the character, which had already been done in the Coats run perfectly, there was no reason for him to deconstruct the character again. And what he tried to do is make T'Challa out to be a villain for setting up agents around the world to take down governments, and said that he was bad for that, which didn't make any logical sense to me. I would have preferred if he actually made T'Challa seem like a villain, like an actual villain. I think that storyline would have been more interesting than what we got with He Who Shall Not Be Named. So other than doing another deconstruction, you want to have him make him out to be the despot that he is, but have it be from a point that makes sense, because T'Challa's a king. And people keep forgetting that. He keeps trying to remind people when they say, "Hey, T'Challa, you can't do that. You shouldn't do that." He's like, "I'm a king. Understand." The Avengers thing is fun, you know.
Right.
Hanging out with you guys and saving the world is fun, but my primary oath and loyalty is to Wakanda and Wakanda's security. So if I got to take out this country, if I got to take out this despot to save my country, or because they violated international law, that's what I do. I want to see a situation, excuse me, where T'Challa's out murdering people, like assassinating people, not because he's not because he's malicious, not because he's being a villain, but because he's a freaking king, and as a king, and king do king shit. You know, kings are supposed to do king shit.
See,
if someone if someone encroaches on his territory, his sovereignty, you have the right to kill them as a sovereign of your country. That's basic law. That's basic international law. And I want to see him do that. I want to see, like, somebody blow up a Wakandan consulate in whatever country, and T'Challa said, I'm going to seek retribution. I'm going to send my assassins over to you and wipe out your entire family, your entire royal family of your country. Because that's what we do. I want to see him do some shit like that and have people say, you can't do that, T'Challa, you're an Avenger. He's like, I'm a king first. And have him made out to be a villain and have everyone try to go after him. That would be an interesting story.
I'm telling you, man, the world...
Oh, no! You know Otis is about to say something interesting, too.
Well, anyway, it's been about 2.5 hours at this point. So for those of you who have joined us once again on a Friday night, thank you very much for spending your time with us. Number 2, if you have not done so, make sure that you hit the like and subscribe button. Hit the little bell so you can get notifications whenever these lives from Black Comic Lords come up. They happen on Fridays with me and Paul. They happen throughout the week with different individuals. Make sure you do that. And make sure that you share these videos on your socials, be it the Twitters or the Facebooks or whatever it is that you've got. Thank you once again for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Yeah, thank y'all for vibing with us, man, and you know, showing us the love. We appreciate it. We really do.
All right.
So final words. Check out Black Panther Blood Hunt #2. Always pre-order your comics. Help to support the creators that you want to see still get jobs and still do the type of work that you want to see. Sign up for Atlantic Comic Con taking place in Virginia, August 16th through 18th. And support the Epiphany Engine Kickstarter. So that's it.
Peace.
Black Comic Lords, we got you.